Good evening and welcome to a District 5 community update. We appreciate you taking out time from your busy personal lives to be here and to get a little bit more information about what the district has been doing over the last several months to prepare to repurpose facilities. And this is also going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions that you may have about what has happened since we initiated the right sizing process a year ago. My name's Tony Thompson, and I have the privilege of serving the district as Chief of Staff. And I'm just here really to welcome you and to kind of frame how we're going to spend our time together. And then I'm going to introduce you to some of the individuals that are also going to speak and share information during the time that we're together this afternoon. I want to start by, and you're going to learn a whole lot more about the facility repurposing process that we're engaged in right now a little bit later in the presentation. But I want to introduce two individuals who are here who have really helped us tremendously by bringing wisdom, knowledge, and expertise to our table. And it's two of the facility repurposing panel members who are here. So Thomas Davis, thank you. And Henry Gonzalez. Thank you. We would not, have embarked on this journey without having community support. So we appreciate these two gentlemen and the other 13 or 14 that have been supporting this effort for 7 or 8 months now, because they have devoted a lot of time for the purpose of making sure that the district is aware of what the community thinks would be important, and so that we can act accordingly. In addition, and these gentlemen will be asked or invited to come up when we get to the question and answer phase at the end of our brief presentation. But I also want to introduce you to a couple of other folks, to include Yvonne Little. Where's Yvonne? She's going to speak with you about bond updates. She's our Senior Executive Director for, okay, construction's what I remember. So she's going to provide some updates about, the construction work that's been underway. And you can tell from the way things look at Lanier that we have invested some time and effort into upgrading this campus, which is awesome. And then shortly, we're going to turn it over to Kevin Kwiatkowski, who's Director for Strategy, and he's going to provide the facility repurposing panel update for you. But I will now turn it over to someone, and we may have others from the team who, share information, who will answer questions. I want to, acknowledge our Deputy Superintendent for Operations, Patty Salzman. She's certainly here. She's been involved in this project since the onset, and, we'll be able to answer some questions for you if needed as well. So now I want to turn it over to someone who really needs no introduction. The trustee for Single Member District 5, Stephanie Torres. Thank you, Ms. Torres.
Good evening. Thank you for everybody coming out for tonight. I really do appreciate it. And this meeting's being held because it's one of our promises we had to, always keep our families informed. So this year we opened up our school year and blended family with our Sarah King and our Storm. It's been a great transition with them. The following board voted last year to consolidate our staff and our students into fewer schools to ensure the quality of education experience for all students to lead better academics outcomes. If you have any questions about the facilities, they are going to be helped and answered and show you how the process we've been doing works. And I am appreciative for the community members that have been on the board with us, trying to figure out what we need to do with these buildings. And with your input and your resources, it will be greatly appreciated. So if you have any questions and anything, please reach out to us. And I turn the meeting over to Ms. Little.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trustee Torres. Again, I'm going to be brief just because this is more about repurposing, but I just wanted to give everybody a little update about what we've been doing here in District 5. Of course, you see the renovations that we did in Bond 2016. We're continuing those efforts through Bond 2020. We just finished a renovation in the Alumni Center. That's already complete. We've got new concession stands that have been renovated and complete. And very excited for, I don't know if y'all saw it, but a couple of weeks ago there was a big crane back here lifting a brand new central plant into the back here for all new HVAC system that would be going in here at Lanier. So we're very excited to bring that to the district and to the campus. We've got library renovations that are already underway, and we hope to have those completed in February. And then the auditorium that has not been used for a very long time is also under construction and will be done by the summer of '25. So again, that's just happening here at Lanier. We've got renovations going over at Tafoya as well. And so we're very excited and grateful for you as a community to entrust us with investing these dollars into our facilities and for our kids. So thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Kevin Kwiatkowski, and thank you all for coming today. Thank you for your time and your interest in our repurposing process. I'm here to talk about how we've been doing as a district since that decision was made back in November of 2023 to close some schools, and what we've been doing to find creative and useful and beneficial ways to repurpose and reuse those. And so, so far, we've been focused on making sure that that we stick to the value of using those in ways that benefit you, and that's why we went and brought in the community members that Tony introduced at the beginning, and their 13 counterparts that represent all aspects of the district. So today I'm going to walk through a couple different things. The first one that I'm going to talk about is what that looks like across the board. So you can see right here there's a list of 20 facilities that we have that were either a part of that right sizing decision or were unused prior to the right sizing decision for one reason or another. That is the group of facilities that we're talking about today, and that we're talking about with what we call the facilities repurposing process. Here in District 5, you can see them outlined in the red box. That's Estrada and that's Storm. This process applies across the board equally to everybody. But we are coming to talk to you tonight in general. We're not going to be talking necessarily specifically about those, but we want to give you the context of which ones in your direct community are impacted. And you can see here that we've been thoughtful and we've imagined a process that goes through some general steps at the beginning that apply to everything across the board, get us set up for success. That's bringing our panel on board. That's obtaining some expertise for things that we aren't built to do as a district. Things like real estate negotiations for leases. We're teachers, right? And we are administrators around teachers and schools, but we are not by trade experts at real estate law. So we have to bring some folks like that on board, and we've been imagining and doing that so far. Then we get into the meat of the process, which is this circular part. That's where we go out to individual neighborhoods and communities and we talk about specific buildings. We get your input on how that works, what you want to see, what you don't want to see, what you'd be open to. And we are doing research at the same time to see what might be feasible or not. There's some buildings that would lend themselves to be used in certain ways and some that you can't use in other ways. And so we would come and have those conversations back and forth over a series of different conversations and engagements. It wouldn't just be one. We'd come out, we'd try to find you in different ways, we'd try to talk to you and get that conversation back and forth. And then from there, we would go and do something that we call a request for proposals. That's a specific kind of procurement lingo for we're going to ask potential partners based on that input and based on what might work in your neighborhood for you in that facility, how they would imagine using it within those confines. And they would submit those proposals, what it would look like, et cetera, et cetera. We'd evaluate them, come back and talk to you about what we decide or what we think is the best option based on all that input. And that's kind of would get repeated over and over again for either individual buildings or groups of buildings that make sense together. For instance, if we have all of our early childhood facilities that that were closed and the students moved back to their home campuses, it might make sense that each community wants to use those as 0 to 3 childcare facilities, at which point we would want to put a proposal together for all of them to be used in certain way, that same certain way. I'm not saying that's what we're planning. That's just an example of why we might group facilities together. So we're really excited about how this would look. And as we bring more experts on and as we get more feedback, it'll change a little bit, right? The exact way that we engage and the exact way that we come out and do those proposals will kind of tweak and improve over time. But this is the general process that we're looking to go through. One thing that we want to make sure you understand, though, is no matter where we are on that line or in those circles, that we're gonna honor these 3 things. We're talking about our commitment to our community, and to us that means that we're going to reuse the buildings and find ways to reuse them that not only honor our mission as a district to educate students and our community, but that also align with the values of what you desire or don't desire in your neighborhood. And we're going to do that, and that's one of the biggest reasons that we have our panel on, and one of the first things that they did for us, which I'll talk about in a minute. The second thing that we're going to honor is safety. That's really important no matter where you are, and it's one of our highest values as a district. But what that means specifically in this case is we have these buildings that we're no longer in not all day every day, but every day, the same way that we have when they're occupied with students. And so we're going to commit to, before a partner is identified and handed off that facility or that building to use for that purpose that we've identified, until that point, we're going to monitor them with our own security systems, our own cameras that we already put in there. Our police are monitoring those cameras 24/7, and we're going to continue the police patrols. That means if something's going wrong, if something's vandalized, if something's broken, we're going to know about it, we're going to take care of it, we're going to respond to it. We're not just going to abandon and walk away. We're going to keep these as if they're still our property, because they are, right? And the other part of keeping those as part of our property is maintaining them. We're not going to maintain them the exact same way as if they're used all day, every day. We're going to turn back to AC and save some money, but we're going to leave it at a level where it's going to make sure everything stays healthy inside the building, right? We're going to cut the grass, maybe not quite as frequently, but we're still going to cut it. We don't want people coming around and hanging out in big long weeds or anything like that. The other part that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that if anything does get broken or vandalized or falls apart, we're going to replace it, we're going to fix it, we're going to maintain it. That means if a window gets broken or multiple windows get broken, you're not going to see boards up for the next 2 or 3 years while we find a partner to come in. We're going to replace it with an actual window as soon as we can get the glass and materials in stock, right? So we're really dedicated to make sure that these buildings are doing what they should be doing now and in the future for you and your community. And so the very first part of that process that I showed you was the panel startup. We've talked about them already a couple times. We've introduced them. They're a wonderful group of 15 people who came on board back in January. And they've been doing a lot of hard work for us, and we're really, really excited that they're here to not only bring their expertise, but to bring the community connection and values and to help us understand what's going on in the communities. At the right sizing decision, at the time that the board made the right sizing decision, they called for this panel to be made, and we did an application period very shortly after that happened at the end of November and through December, and we found who we thought would represent the community best and then brought them in shortly after the new year and got going. And so here they are. We already talked about Thomas and Henry because they're here, and we have the pictures for the rest of them on our website. I'm going to tell you about the website in a couple slides so you can remember how to get to it. It's also linked on the flyer that you picked up when you came in. But the idea here is that we want you to know who they are so that if you do have questions or you do have ideas or feedback, you can talk to them, whether you're at one of these meetings or you see them around in your community, because they are your community members. So we appreciate them, and you actually have the luck of Thomas being one of our steering committee members who does an even harder job of trying to keep us on track and on time when we come to our meetings. We're really excited about all the things that they've done so far. So I mentioned already that they've helped us with identifying the values that they want to see and helping talk through what you as community members that they know want to see in this process. So that's one of the first big things they did. After that, they also helped us identify what were those things in our expertise toolkit that we may lack or that we may not be as strong on that we need. I mentioned real estate law, right? That's one thing that we know we don't. And so we walked through all of this. We also talked about the characteristics of a third-party person or group that would come in and ensuring that those honor the values that we have as a community as well. Things like they have to be local or have local representation. They can't be somebody who's flying in from New York City and flying out. That doesn't help us understand what San Antonio needs, right? We need to know what San Antonio needs. They also helped us with our website. Again, I've talked about it, but they helped us design what should go on it, what it should look like, how we talk to you, and then they've been not only helping us design these meetings as another example, but they've been attending and helping answer questions from their perspectives as well. So we're really excited, we're really thankful for all the hard work that these folks do. They're volunteering their time to do this, and that's just very remarkable, and we really, really appreciate everything they can do, or that they're doing for us. So as far as the update on the process goes, that's kind of the end of the story as to where we are right now. We're obtaining that expertise, so we're somewhere in those first few steps, but already imagining the rest of them. I wanted to let you know that we're also started the engagement. You all are the fourth of our meetings that we've had with each of the high school feeder patterns. There's 3 more. So if you have a neighbor or a friend who hasn't made it to one of these or couldn't make it here tonight, invite them to come to one of the other ones that we have next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, same time at these 3 locations. We're going to share the same information in the same slides and give them the same opportunity to ask any questions they have. But if they can't, or if something comes up after today's meeting before we start posting any other engagements and direct contact points, we have this website. It's real easy to remember, saisd.net/repurpose. You can also use the QR codes on your flyer or up here, but real easy, just repurpose. On there, you'll find all the latest updates we have. We have that picture of the process, so you don't have to remember it if you need to describe it to somebody else. We have all the pictures of the panel members. We also have a button on there that you can go to and say, contact. And there you can submit an idea. Hey, I think it would be cool if you used a building or this specific building even in this way. It's an intro and a start of that conversation. We're going to come and have more of that like I talked about. But if you just want to get it out there right now, tell us about it. If you have a question that you forgot to ask today, ask the question. We'll respond right away and let you know. Or if you just want to be on the mailing list to understand what's going on, when it's happening, when other events are going on, you can say, just add me to the mailing list and we'll send you all the updates that are relevant to this process and this project. So we're really excited to come to you and tell you that we're here at the beginning of the process. We're going to jump into that engagement just as soon as we can about specific buildings and neighborhoods. But we really appreciate you coming out and hearing that update. Now we'd like to turn the microphones over to you. We have a couple folks in the audience who are going to stand up and walk around with microphones. So if you do have a question, please just raise your hand. I'm going to invite Thomas and Henry if they want to come up. We may invite others as your questions come through, but just raise your hand, let us know if you have a question. They'll come around and get to you, and then we'll go from there. Hello, how are you?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Diana Castillo Perez. I was raised here in the community in District 5, and I came to Lanier as well. I graduated. My son also graduated from Lanier. All our family are Lanier millennials. They graduated from here. So I'm here
Awesome.
today because I'm interested what's going to be happening here in District 5. And I'm here because I heard that Lanier High School only has one police officer. And that's a concern. What you just mentioned right now, I was like, that's what we need. We're very concerned about the safety of our children in school, not only here in Lanier, but in all the district. That's a main concern. I think we need to make it a priority to look into it because we need more officers in the schools. We only have one policeman in the campus. Of course, we have some that are driving around, but I think it's more important having them inside the building while we're having our children in the classrooms, right? Because we have 1,500 students in Lanier, and I think one police officer is not enough security for our kids to be safe in the building. And I think that's a priority for the children to have a safe environment in the school for them to come and get a proper education. So that's my question about the security.
About having more than
More
one
policemen in the
Okay.
school.
Could I invite Patty Salzman, our Deputy Superintendent, to come up and speak to that?
So we share your priority of safety. It's certainly something that's very important to us. It's also something that's important to our Citizens Bond Committee. We prioritize safety. We have been in contact with the principal about the ways that we can specifically make Lanier safer, and we definitely want to do that. We do want to put more police officers on our buildings. We have, the board recently approved a compensation package so that we can do that. Part of our challenge is recruiting enough officers. But we will share your concerns with the chief and to see, what we can do to, elevate your concern. But we definitely, if you have watched our board meetings, maybe somewhere around May, the board engaged in quite a few conversations about safety, specifically around having more police officers in our district. And so we share your concern. They have allocated resources toward it. We're now trying to recruit more police officers. And I think, Tony, you said how many are allocated? Two. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Say like, oh, I'm sorry. Do y'all have something where y'all have in place, like, according to how many students we have in the campus, how many police officers we should have? Because I think it's a big number. 1,500 students is a big number. And I believe that we're dealing with high school students. Some are adults already, 18 and so forth, they're big. And I believe that we need to make it safe because, when it's, hopefully not, but when fights occur, it's hard to control, the crowd, I think sometimes it gets over, they surround the fight and it's hard for the one officer to get to the, to rescue, stop the fight or whatever's going on. And I think we need to consider that because, it's hard for one police officer to control a fight when you have 1,500 students. And we sort of also look, I would also like to recommend that y'all look into maybe getting some of those devices for the entries of the doors, because I believe that the safety along with the drugs and the guns coming into the schools, and we all are aware of that, especially here in District 5 in the west side, we need to look into that. We don't want to have something like Uvalde had, I'm not saying, but you never know. We got to make our children safe and make it a safe environment for our children to learn. Thank you.
Thank you. We are taking notes actually from this meeting, and so we'll pass that information on to the chief. There are quite a few things we do around safety that we can't share publicly because it would compromise our safety protocols, but I do want to let you know also that we do, because we also have a patrol unit, we could have multiple police officers in any location within 3 minutes. So I know that that's not specifically addressing your question, but we'll pass that along to the chief. But I wanted to reassure you about that as well.
Thank you for the question. Anyone?
I didn't get the part where I asked you, what is this does she have a number, like, we have 1,500 students, how many officers would be, like a ratio or something where we can have how many officers? Because I
Right.
think that's a big question.
What kind of officers are they hiring? What kind of credentials do they have?
So these are trained law enforcement officers. And in addition, they have to have a special certification to be law enforcement officers in a school setting. We also require additional training for our officers in safety response protocols and also in mental health. Those are not required by the state. So they are law enforcement officers, licensed, and they are armed. So I want to assure you about that. Because I do know, that's a great question, because some schools, they have I guess, commissioned officers. They have parents or security people. We actually have law enforcement officers. So the state of Texas recently passed legislation that they're giving districts time to implement for one officer on a campus. So there's not a ratio by student, but you can see that the district, we do know that large campuses, we do feel that there should be additional supervision. And so I want you to know that the board and the superintendent are absolutely committed to increase that as we can, as funding allows and as the actual officers we can find allows. We have a very high standard for quality of our officers because we want to manage two things. We want to keep the environment safe, but we don't want to criminalize our students either, because there's a delicate balance between some families that want more law enforcement, but we also have heard from our community they don't want law enforcement. So we have to manage that tension between wanting our campuses safe and putting the right people on a campus so that it's a really safe and welcoming environment for all our students.
I think there was a question over here.
I just want to add, like she said, I mean, the city, when you do an event, you have to have, I can't remember how many police officers in the event for every 100 people. And I'm aware of what she's saying. It's true. I mean, this campus is 1,500 students for only one officer. I mean, we should have at least 5 officers. I'm just guessing. But I mean, that's too much, like 5 officers, right? And like what she mentioned, that there's also parents that they don't want officers in campus. I mean, with all the things that have been happening everywhere, I mean, my only concern is the school looks real nice, not just this one, also Burbank. But the glasses, I'm pretty sure they're not bulletproof. So, I mean, I did ask that question a couple years ago to Dr. Ortiz, and he told me that they were not bulletproof. So, I mean, that's my concern.
Okay. We definitely hear you, and like Ms. Salzman said, we're going to take that and pass that concern and that question on to our chief of police, and the board has continued to make safety a priority. Any other questions? Hello? We've got a microphone coming right behind you.
You had mentioned there's going to be a request for proposal going out. Do we have a projected date when that's going to happen?
No. Let me go into a little bit more detail for you on that. It's going to be several requests for proposals, each one geared towards a specific community, one school or a small number of schools, and a specific use. So the one example I used when I was, explaining to y'all is perhaps the use for a early childhood, not early childhood that we already have in pre-K 3, 4, and plus, but an extra early, so the 0 through 3 age range. And we would go out for, hey, we want one here at this specific building, or perhaps these multiple buildings. And so we don't have an exact date. I'm sorry to answer it that way, but our hope is that we would get started sometime within the next 6 to 12 months with 1 or 2 proposals, requests for proposals, where we would have already gone out and talked to the community through that cycle, found out what they want, what they don't want, come to an agreement on what those potential uses or use for that facility is, and then go specifically out for that, looking for partners.
Okay, I've got a follow-on question, if you don't
Yes.
mind. When do you anticipate that the facility will be ready for occupation by the new partner or person who's going to lease?
A lot of that's going to depend both on the prioritization and the cycling of how many times and how quickly we can get through some of those conversations. So we're, as I mentioned, we're educators, and our first business is making sure our students are growing. So while we can and while our time and resources permit, we're going to keep working through this. We imagine it will take several years. I think the end of this process showed approximately December 2026 before we can get through the conversation and have decisions on each of the facilities. It may take a little longer. It will definitely take shorter in some cases, because we might get, we're not going to be able to just go out for 19 all at once, or 20, excuse me. But we would hopefully go as soon as possible in some cases, things that have quick agreement around an idea. We've already been getting ideas, and we're going to be posting that on our website all the way back from last year when we started the right sizing conversations. As soon as we started having those, some of those post-it notes that our staff members were putting up, if you recall at those meetings, they were, if you do close a building, here's a good idea for something that we need in our neighborhood. So we've been capturing those, and we're going to post those on our website soon. But anyways, all of that's a long way to say that not only that, but then we have to do negotiations on leases, and those can take a long time. So it's a really hard thing to pinpoint a time, but as soon as we possibly can, we want to start these getting up and running. We just know realistically it will take a little bit of time for us to get through that.
Okay, and one more, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I consider myself to be a potential partner for the repurposing process.
Okay.
At what point will we be allowed to maybe go visit some of these potential facilities to determine the conditions and
Right.
what required to make it usable for our operation?
That's a really, really good question, and I'm glad that we have potential partners. This is a conversation amongst the whole community, and you are a member of the community in that sense. You're part of what's going to help us, and there was a box that said research and evaluation that will help us understand what's feasible. We don't know if a particular space could be reused. It could probably be easily reused for an early child facility like we've been talking about in that potential example, because they're already schools, there's minor updates. But we've also gotten the idea for something like affordable teacher housing. Well, how practical is that in this building? We don't know yet, right? We don't know all the answers to those, so it's going to take some conversations with folks like you and other experts that we have. But we want that anybody who's a partner to start talking with us at these community engagement events, so you can hear directly from the community what they want, that the community can hear what you can provide or not. It's a facilitated conversation in that entire circle that we're looking forward to having. And we will then at some point through there, yes, we'll have to engage on coming in and showing it. We also are going to put out at some point, probably earlier than that, some published information on our assessment of the facility conditions, so you can at least have an idea of what we understand the conditions to be. And I know it will be different based on different uses. So we know that has to be a part of the process, but we haven't gotten deep enough to answer exactly when.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you, and thanks for coming.
I want to ask you, you're talking about, I like to ask questions. I'm a parent and I'm community activist.
That's
I
great.
like to ask, I come to ask because I have 7 children, I have 23 grandchildren and a big
We're here
family.
for
So I
questions,
want to
yep.
know what's going to happen. I have questions for you. You were speaking about contracts, about those empty buildings that we shut it down, the schools that were closed, right?
Correct.
You talked about the electrical, you're going to have electricity going on. You're going to have the grass, a yard maintained. You talked about all these things. Okay, it's going to take money. Where's that money coming from? If we're always talking about we don't have money for this, we don't have money for that, where is this money coming from? And also, second, who's going to get those contracts? Who's going to be in charge of hiring or giving the contract to whoever so they can cut the grass, so they can do, maintain the building,
Yep.
all that stuff. I want to know where's that money coming from?
Yep. Thank you for the questions. I appreciate it. I'm going to answer your last one first and then go backwards. The decision for repurposing a facility and engaging with any partner ultimately is going to come from the board. They have to enter into legal agreements like that, right? So that's the end of the process. But before that, the way that that works is we will have done all that community engagement I talked about. We'll have come to decisions and ideas and agreements with you all as community members in the affected areas. We'll take that to our panel members who are going to be a part of those conversations, but we'll go back and we'll kind of group up and talk through it. We'll come up with recommendations. We'll talk to our senior leadership, the superintendent, the deputy superintendents, and then we'll come back and we'll make that process known, and it's going to be a public process where everybody will see that. We'll come back with our recommendation on the final one. If there's questions that we need to come back to the community at, we'll do that again. But then ultimately, as that decision is being finalized and those contracts are being done, it's the board that will sign off on and agree to that entire plan, whatever it might look like, whoever the partner might be, however long the terms might be, exactly how it would be used. And then your first question was about where's the money coming from. These are buildings that we've already had operational and in our portfolio. They're things that we're going to be pulling the savings back. We're going to turn off all the lights. We're going to dial back to AC. So we're going to be taking money that we were using last year, and that at the board's decision, that we've now been able to more efficiently allocate the resources that we already have by saving some money here and taking that and using it for our other facilities. And once we're done and have that agreement that we just talked about, part of the agreement is that we will not maintain those buildings after that point, and that will be cost neutral to us, so that then the partner takes that on from that point forward. That's the other reason why we want to make sure that this happens as rapidly as possible. And so we're motivated to make sure it does. We just know realistically 19 or 20 buildings at the same time is not something that we can bite off and chew. So we're going to go through them just as deliberately, purposefully, and quickly as possible. Any other questions for myself or our panel members? Is there anything that you gentlemen would like to add? Oh, hello.
Just a quick recommendation.
Yes, sir.
I see. I'm always about time is money, and I know that the 6 to 12 months before you get to the RFP is one thing, and then you're looking at about another year to figure out what you're going to do with the facilities. And the cost, I mean, I would recommend that, hey, you get the panels to get their timetable sped up a little bit,
Okay.
Cut down the time frame on that. I mean, it's going to be expensive. I know it's strategically in the long term you're going to be okay, but in the short term, I mean, we've already spent a lot of time on this. It's been a few, I don't know, we're going through this whole process, all these closures. I would just assume the money it could be used wiser.
Yes, Thomas Davis. I'm the co-chair of the panel, and thank you to Henry for being here tonight as well. Your point is well taken. As the panel, we've emphasized with staff that speed is important, but doing it right and doing it well and doing it right by the community is of the utmost importance. So we've really emphasized as the panel to the district as its advisory group, that we want to make sure the community is engaged at all points, that we're not making any decisions or we're seen as nothing's happening in a back room. We're all citizens. We're all, all of us have a stake in SAISD. So making sure that moving quickly doesn't also impede doing it right and doing it well, and making sure that we're having these meetings, that we're coming back to you, we're saying, okay, we've got the professional, we've got the consultant on board. Now we're going to move into the community engagement. Okay, we've got that information. We're going to do a feasibility assessment. We're going to do an assessment on what we can do with this building, how much work it needs. Come back to you as a community, re-engage with you as a community, and then hopefully move quickly when the RFP comes up, just so we have that foundation. A strong foundation for this is going to make sure that the facilities are used in ways that the community, that the district, and that, communities across the city. Like we're all members of the city of San Antonio, so like that it's a place, they're places where people want to be and want to go, and that their use is commensurate with, you know, how the community sees those and how they want those to be, and also sort of that align with potential use. So we hear you. I want to say we hear you as panel members that speed is important, but we also want to make sure that we're not skipping any steps, that we're doing it right, and that we're coming back to y'all as the community and making sure that it's done well. And I just want to reemphasize the Repurpose website. There is a space for you to give your ideas. So we come out here and we're like, hey, give us your ideas, and we really do want them. If you're a potential partner, if you're a former student, if you're a parent, whatever, if you know somebody who's got a great idea for a potential reuse of a school, the link's there. We're collecting them right now. We're going to be gathering them, and then when we move into the formal process, hopefully we'll be committed to looking at them and reviewing them and finding out the best way along with the community to make that work.
Thanks, Thomas. Yeah. Anything else? Nope. We're gonna end my portion here with just if you are interested in being involved, we love that, we appreciate it, and we want more of it. So there's one more website for you to remember. It's saisd.net/advisory. We want you to go there if you want to look, and you'll find committees, councils, and other groups like this where you can get involved and have your voice heard about a litany of different topics, not just about facilities, but about our curriculums and our overall district operations and everything like that. So there's a big, long list. Please, please stay involved. We want as much community involvement from our neighbors as we possibly can. So thank you all. I think I'm going to turn it back to Trustee Torres here for her closing remarks, and thank you to our panel members for coming up.
Thank you again for your presentation and for all your questions. I mean, I know all of us weren't answered, but we are going to work to hear y'all. And y'all know me. I mean, we try to get everything clear as possible. And again, thank you to the district, because for once, our community actually has a seat at this table to actually know from the beginning what's going on. And I appreciate that so much. And to be honest, all your feedback, we are taking it down. And please, please, gentlemen, put your questions, especially if your potential person we'll be working with soon. We'll really love you, have you in our community. And thank you for coming and everything. And just to let you know, freshman football playing is today. So the first game, y'all, if y'all want to go support us, we're outside. Thank y'all again for coming.